Are you a vibey therapist?
Highly go.
Get cozy.
An absolute brilliant mind. Yeah, that was scary.
Monique, she's flossing, but let's go ahead and get started.
Okay, what are we doing? That's how we will know we've made it. Yeah.
Should we do the thing?
Sit here and look pretty.
You good?
Okay, that's gonna be good.
Okay, here for it. Hey, welcome to episode 2 of Sharing the Couch. On this episode, we're going to talk about why you should or shouldn't niche your practice. And today I'm joined with my friend and colleague, Katie Harris. Katie, tell us about yourself.
Hi. Well, I'm so glad to be here. This is so fun.
So fun.
To jump into this dream of the podcast. But about me, I guess this topic is really interesting because I probably tend to niche more.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking forward to kind of talking about that, but also like debunking some of those myths of like, should you myth when, or should you niche, or shouldn't you? Is that bad? Is it good? So even just kind of chatting through that for either other therapists or new grads or clients looking for a therapist that might specialize in something.
Yeah, I feel like today's episode is great for just about anyone, any topic. I think you're right. Like for the new grads, for the in school, kind of, we're going to talk a little bit about theory. For searching clients who are interested in pursuing therapy, let's talk about how to find a therapist that's going to meet your needs and get that met. And for therapists, like on marketing. So it's an all-inclusive day today.
Yeah, it's a bookstore for everyone.
I love the analogy. We shared it on episode 1, and if you guys haven't heard it, it's super great. So thanks for that.
Yeah.
You're good with the analogies, aren't you?
I'm a very visual person. Like I try to, like my brain works that way. And so some of the clients that I work with, I share that right away. I'm like very visual. So if you don't like those, tell me, but hopefully sometimes it's helpful to grab or grasp kind of the things that we're talking about. So
I think it works, and it's a gift of yours. So thanks for sharing it.
Yeah, thank you.
So what does niching even mean when we're talking about therapy?
Yeah, I think it probably is a similar word to like a specialty, specializing in something. So either, I think as a therapist, either something you're really passionate about that you want to continue learning about, that you enjoy working with. But I also think there's a level of like experience with it. And so I think for me, I've probably niched into like the sports world, but that's also expanded. That's kind of fluctuated of like, originally it was more athlete focused because of my background, but then it expanded because there was other people within the industry of sports that might not have been athletes. And so I think when I think of niche, it's like kind of this little pocket of people, this little group that, it's a unique experience to that place. And so I think as people are looking for a therapist with that, it's like, can someone understand me? Is someone going to get what I'm going through? And so I think there's so much benefit to finding a niche therapist or niching in a pocket of people, but it also can go so much bigger than that and expand from just that pocket of people. Maybe there's other similarities in other kind of realms.
Yeah. So episode 1, we talked a lot about like our amazing team and kind of like this group of experts that we're going to bring on and share the couch with and like share with our viewers and listeners. And you are, I think you were one of our hires that we were like, man, this girl has such an interesting background. How do we like bring this out, market it, help people understand that this person has this like very unique specialty? Like I remember feeling kind of high pressure when we hired you because I'm like, what a gem. And there is a specific community that needs her and frankly doesn't have enough of her. Because in the world of sports, in the world of athletes, in the world of like just any kind of like fitness health, we are lacking mental health and physical health integration. So give us your background and describe some of my anxiety there of like why I was like, this girl's a gem, we got to share her. So like, tell us your background and like, maybe did you intend to niche? Was this random? Walk me through it.
Yeah, so I had another life
before
becoming a therapist. I was an athletic trainer, so people that help with injury recovery, rehabilitation with athletes from middle school to professional sports. And so kind of saw a broad range of injuries and interacted with so many different people at different levels of their sport. And started noticing the need for mental health services in that space. It was a huge gap. It was just an underserved population because of the expectation to perform and to just grin and bear it. You know, it's very grind culture and like you just work through it and it's toughness and all of those things. And yet, when they would come into the athletic training room with an injury or vulnerability, it was not only physical, but it was emotional too.
Totally.
And so I wanted to be more equipped, and truly, honestly, went back to school just to be more equipped to stay an athletic trainer.
I don't think I realized that.
Yes. So I had no intentions of transitioning into full-time counseling when I first went back to grad school, and then just kind of over time, and then my own life was changing personally. And it was like, you know what? I actually really like this part of things. I also love not working 70 hours a week and traveling all the time. And so it was just a really good life transition for me personally. But I think my background in that was like, I originally was like, I want to serve the athlete population.
Yeah.
And so that was where probably was scary for for you guys, because that wasn't something that you were marketing for or looking for or searching. So I can totally see that. And thanks for taking a chance on me.
Yeah. I mean, it felt like I needed like, I wanted to do it well, right? Like, and it felt like I didn't want to overcommit and underdeliver, because like you are a gem and the community needs you. And so, I mean, we like interviewed you, and I think that it was kind of like, let's kind of figure this out together.
Yeah. And we've kind of stumbled through it, because I think that's where maybe that was my specialty at that time to me. And I don't know if these are the correct terms or definitions, but specialty seems more narrow. Niche seems to me, this is something that like kind of a little bit more broad and fluid. So when I started working with athletes, it was like, that's what I want. But it was like, why? Why do I like that? Oh, I like the high achieving. Oh, I like the high performer. I like the perfectionist. I like that mentality. And I think it expanded to lawyers and doctors and like kind of C-suite professionals. And so that's probably my niche, is that more maybe quality thing of like the perfectionist high achievers, but that's so broad. If you really think about that.
It's pressure. Like you like working with people who have experienced pressure.
Yes. So I think, I don't know, I guess challenging the narrative of niche a little bit more, is it doesn't have to be, I only work with this. It's, I enjoy this. Where does that show up in other populations?
I love that. And so initially you were working with a lot of athletes, and then like a few cases came on your caseload and you were like, oh, interesting. I like working with the pressure. I like working with the high performers. And there's what, like a similar theme, trait, attribute, like what broadened your funnel almost?
That's such a great question. I think it was like, what helps these individuals be successful is also the thing that also is the hardest to maintain. Right. And so it's like, how can we hold space for something that is so sweet and so good that's helped you? But also, are there times where it's not? And can there be compassion there? Like, can we hold both of those things and nurture that? And also, I think separating themselves from what they do. Right. Like the identity piece in that of like, okay, this has made me really successful in my career, in my sport, but it's really detrimental in my marriage or in my family. Okay, so how can we let all of those parts of yourself work together and show compassion, but find balance in that? And so I think that's where it started getting broader, when I probably had more of a unique client that I was like, oh, I never thought I'd work with this kind of client, but I saw very similar things. So I think that's where my funnel probably broadened a little bit. Like, oh, this isn't just athletes. Like this is like everybody kind of to some extent.
Yes. I love that. And it's almost like what, I don't know, when you were working with those individuals with similar traits of that, was it like a spark? Was it like a relaxation? Was it like, I am filled with all this information and I want to process this with you? Like, how did you know that was like, let's nurture this for yourself?
I think, I don't know if there was one moment.
Fair.
I think it was over time and probably happened unintentionally and organically. So our practice is very maternal mental health friendly and, family oriented. And I just started kind of seeing more of the dads or like the male figures.
I was sending you all of my clients like husbands.
Yes. And I think that opened my eyes to it, because one, I think there's history in sports in a lot of people's stories.
Sure.
And so being able to be like, oh, like this works here. And like, we can kind of relate or kind of talk about it differently. So I think I was intimidated probably getting those referrals of like, oh, that's not my world necessarily, like that parenting space, but it wasn't all parenting focused, because that's just one role. Like that's just one kind of identity with the individuals. So I think it was over time, it just started being like, oh, I like this. This feels good. This is sweet. Kind of my sweet spot a little bit more.
And we've talked about for our practice, like kind of the strategy with niching, right? And so like the mental health of therapists, right? This is a hard field. It's a hard field to
Yeah.
work in. Working with clients like that you care about and that you develop a relationship with. And when they're struggling, like as a therapist, you feel that, right? Like that's
Yeah.
just a shared space. And so we've all found these niches.
Mm-hmm.
Are you supposed to? Like, is everyone supposed to have a second life like
Yeah.
you, or like have this like spark? Like, how does this happen for people organically, like you just described?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's what you need in that season.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's some people that have like lifetime therapists, and
Yeah.
that's wonderful because that's relationship. There's
Sure.
trust, there's felt safety there. And then I think there's different times where maybe different therapists could be a different fit.
Yes.
And so maybe in my, this is just a pure example, but in my 20s, like I had an older client or an older therapist for me personally. And I loved it because it was like wisdom. It was very nurturing. And then as I got into my early 30s, like I had a therapist that was like more my age.
Yeah.
And that just worked because it's kind of like we were kind of in the same season, and it was kind of validating in different ways. And so I think as we think about developing like through a niche, one as a therapist, I think it can fluctuate. I mean, yours has changed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it is the lifespan. Like we as individuals live a life that evolves and grows. And so does our interest in our life experience. Like hard things happen to us as therapists and kind of like soften us to learning about certain things. And so that comes up in the therapy room, whether you say it explicitly as a therapist or not. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I know for me, I like working with perfectionists, but I have kind of done my own work in perfection.
Sure.
I kind of joke that I'm a recovering perfectionist in that way. So parts of me come out of like, oh, I want to help this person get through this. And I want to be the perfect therapist sometimes. And I think that's why it's so important in our practice is to talk about that is like, ooh, what's causing that to come up in me? And so could there be seasons where maybe the perfectionist clients maybe aren't the best fit for me because it's poking at different areas. So I think there's a humility too that comes with being a therapist of like, ooh, this is an area like I need a little bit more kind of work on my own fine tuning.
Yes.
Or at least like accountability with other therapists or people that you feel trusted so that you can serve these populations. So there's a self-awareness to the niche or specialization as well.
Yeah. And I definitely think there's seasons where I will say to like one of you guys, like, hey, I just got this case and it's hitting a space. I need to stop it more or process it more. It's, bringing up things in me I didn't expect. And like, that's the sign of a good therapist is that you can know that and not project that onto your client, but you can know that and interact with that world of it. Yeah.
Yes.
For niching. So we're saying like, obviously, like, I think there's two things here. Like, you can specialize in something you've had trauma in, but it doesn't mean that that's your specialty. Like, should you only see a caseload full of clients that are hitting something that's really hard for you right now? Like, probably not. Like maybe like you could work with a few clients, but not your whole caseload. And so kind of knowing your mental health, your self-care. So for new therapists, let's kind of start there. You might be in grad school, you might be just graduating and getting your license. And there's this idea that I've kind of seen with interns that have come in. So they're in their graduate program and they're working on their clinical hours and they come in and they're like, this is the type of theory I practice out of. This is how I practice. And I think all of us just are like, it's going to be okay. Like there's a lot of like, this is how I should be or what my program told me to be. So like, what would you say to them when they're trying to figure out kind of their spot in the world and like their theory or their clientele? I don't know, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I remember that pressure. I remember when I interviewed, I was like, I need to tell them I'm psychodynamic. I need to tell them this so that like they know. And it's like, man, if I could go back and tell like younger Katie, take a deep breath. Because you're going to be working with people. You're not going to be working with a textbook.
No.
Right. And so people are going to be different. Some things are going to vibe with other clients and they are others. And so is theory helpful? Yes.
Sure.
I think it's foundational. I think it is our duty to be aware of those things. And like, how can it blend with you naturally and organically in relationship? How can you be not a robot or like someone just regurgitating like textbook information and be relational or be heard and seen or helping someone feel heard and seen? But also niching, I think there's a lot of pressure. It's like, know what population you want to work with. So then you get out of grad school, you know where to go. And do I think direction is helpful? Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Because the world is so broad and it is okay if you don't know right away. You can go generalist first.
Totally.
Take people that come into the door and be like, "Oh, I really like this." And then you start learning yourself, because you don't stop learning when you get that diploma.
Totally.
Like, I think that's where really the learning begins.
Absolutely.
Because now you're in the real world.
Yeah.
And so being able to maybe come out broader in that experience of like more of a generalist, kind of seeing out, okay, I want to, maybe let's try kids or adolescents. And then you get one and you're like, wow, I don't know if that's my vibe.
Yeah.
It is okay.
Yes.
And I think maybe the permission piece for it to change and the permission for the exploration is something that I would encourage new grads to just sit in.
Yeah.
It's like, I know there's so much pressure and you want to do well and you want to succeed and you want to be prepared. And
yes,
you can still explore.
Yeah. And I think even with like a theory, right? A lot of them are written by old white men. Yeah. And so how do we even niche like, okay, like I like this theory, but the people that I'm trading, like that does not apply to them. No. And so there might be a different theoretical orientation that I need to have that has more reflective cultural competency or had diverse data sets of diversity in the backgrounds of the individuals that it was studied through. Like, and so being careful to like want to crush the box and like get curious and messy with it, I think is important.
Yeah, well, it models therapy.
Yeah.
I mean, therapy is messy. You're going to have days where you leave and you're rejuvenated and there's a moment that like was reflective, and you're going to have days being like, what? Which way is that? Like, what happened? But that's life. Like I think the therapy room is that space that you can kind of like explore and practice, and hopefully there's felt safety there to take outward. And I think it's that for the therapist ethically too.
Yes.
Right? Like ethically kind of, okay, this doesn't seem to be working. Can I come at it with like different modalities from a different theory? Like what would feel better for this client? And so again, not using them as an experiment, but using it as, let's try this together. And see how that works.
And like co-creating the experience.
Yes. Because we don't, again, want that power dynamic in the room. Like, let's try this. It's like, what do you think about this? How would this feel to you? This is what I'm kind of curious to explore. So I think there's beauty in the messiness and kind of being curious and breaking the boundaries and all of those things that makes it more authentic.
Yeah, I love that.
Let's go behind the scenes. This segment is where we give a peek behind the therapy room door.
Hey guys, thanks for joining us again on our segment called Therapists Behind the Scenes. And today we're going to be talking about, do we take notes before session? I for sure take it in intake. Yeah. Because I feel like there's just a lot of information that I want to make sure I'm keeping track of, and either timelines or dates or relationships, because that session's a little bit longer. It's usually about that 75-minute mark. And so that one I for sure take notes. But I also I make sure I have a pen and paper next to me with every session that I'm in, just in case something comes to my mind or I'm curious. I am kind of funny in this way. I take notes in different colors for different clients so that I don't put any identifiers as I'm writing things down. And not that I would, I usually just write down like a phrase that they say that I want to go back to. Or if I'm noticing a pattern, I'll write like reflect attachment or like something like that, just for my cue. I usually trash them or shred them, but again, there's no identifier in the notes that I take, but I always like to have something where if they're in like a full process, but I want to go back to something that they say, like, okay, let's go back to this thing. So I think the availability of notes, yes. Do I always take them? No.
Yes. What about you? Yeah, I completely agree. Like you said, intake is so much information, and we're wanting to show that new person we just met, like that we're very intentionally listening, and with that, we're gonna need to maybe take some notes. And like you said, like we get rid of them, and they're safe from anyone else's eyes, but they're just for us to really help process what we've learned. And then same thing during session, I'll do the same thing of taking a note here or there if there's something they say, or if they're giving me updates maybe on their meds, or even something that's like a little bit harder for me to remember the exact pieces of it. That way I can kind of keep that in my notes with them as well. Or if me and my clients sometimes are either like role playing or like throwing back ideas back and forth, sometimes maybe I'll use notes as a way for me to help us kind of stay in alignment of what we're talking about too. And so it's always kind of used in a way of like, how do I better this session, as opposed to, oh, let me write down every single thing you're saying.
Right.
Because I think that can maybe miss the mark of, oh, are they listening to me, or am I kind of in more of a doctor office kind of experience.
Yes, that's such a good point, because I think probably especially early on in my career, I was like, oh, I want to make sure I'm not missing anything, which I think, okay, there's a time and place for that. Like you're saying, like meds or certain things that are a little bit more need attention to detail, but I also think you're missing the moment with the client that's in front of you by trying to remember. And again, like you're saying, trial and error with how much feels good and comfortable and how much feels useful, but also is there something else in the moment that's kind of taking you away from that experience with notes. But I will say probably I would be so curious to have your thoughts for like EMDR sessions that looks a little bit different, like while someone's processing. I tend to write more because again, that's not as interactive as a therapist, probably as a traditional talk therapy moment. So I probably write a little bit more I notate a little bit more as they're processing, just to kind of reflect back or have to interweave or something like that too.
Yes, I absolutely do that as well. And that's a good point, that maybe even the type of therapy may require us taking more or less notes. And as you mentioned, like that is a type of therapy where we get to reflect a little later with the client on what we're writing in. And so we're keeping it for them to remember too. Is how I like to think about it, where, as you mentioned, a client that I'm seeing weekly, and I am, so knowing of their life, and we're following a certain path, like I don't need to take those kind of notes. And it's more important for me to really be in that space with them. Well, that was a great question, and please feel free to send in more and we'd love to answer.
Let's head back to the couch.
A little bit of like the therapy world gossip and some tea here.
Spill it.
Yeah. So there's a lot of like, I feel like judgment for therapists who say like, I work with all of these different types of like mood disorders, anxiety disorders, like just really any kind of like broad marketing or advertising when they're putting themselves out there and they're like new into practicing. And I feel like there's judgment where we're kind of saying like, oh, like there's no way that someone can know all these things or treat all these things. But I also think it kind of says like, I'm learning and I'm growing as a clinician and I'm trying to figure out like who my group is or what this population is. And so I think we as therapists have a little bit of like seasoning under our belt to also be open to the fact that that is a part of therapist growth, is that, don't practice where you shouldn't. Don't work with a client that you don't have supervision and resources and community around. Don't ever do that. It's out of the ethical code. But also like if you have resources towards working with anxiety and like feel equipped to serve this client in that way, like talk to them about it and bring that up and talk about how you'll co-create that space. So I think we as therapists need to be careful of like judging someone who's not niche, because I'm also proud of them for not overselling like what they are or aren't doing in their clinical development.
So and I agree. I think it's about us being curious too, because we do have like an ethical obligation of making sure everyone's kind of doing what they're supposed to be doing, and same with reason, like do no harm, like you want to make sure that that's a thing. But I think sometimes we bring that judgment instead of being curious. Like, oh, okay, I'm curious if, is this, particular therapist like trying to broaden, like, are they trying to shift gears because they're in a different season of life? So they've kind of broadened their population or their specialties or their interests. Okay, let's be curious. But I think it can teeter on that line too of like, what's the intention behind what that therapist is doing too? And maybe that's a self-awareness and a self-check. Am I just marketing to everybody because I need people in the door? Okay, I think that's a different conversation. Versus I'm marketing to a broad range because I'm trying to grow and learn and find which population, because this one's not what I thought it was going to be, or maybe I'm changing. So I think there's a self-awareness part on the therapist. I think there's a compassion part on the community of therapists around it too, that I think sometimes we forget that we're all human.
This segment is What's on Your Bookshelf, where we talk about what we are reading and how it applies in the therapy room.
Okay, what book did you bring to talk about today? This is one of my favorite books, and I probably tell all my clients about it. But it's What Happened to You by Dr. Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey. And it's written in a dialogue. And so it's not like heavy in a chapter. It's like kind of Oprah asking questions and then he kind of answers them. And it's kind of like you were sitting on her show. She has like an interview with it, but it talks about trauma and the neuroscience of our brain, but in such like a tangible way. This would be my recommendation, to be able to talk about like why your body keeps score and like what happens when we do and we don't process through that trauma, we don't talk about it. And so it's really great. It's very, I say it's a very now what, like we can talk about it, but like what do we do with that information afterwards? So I just feel like it's really, really good in that way.
That's awesome. What was one of your like favorite parts? Because I read that, but it's been some time since I read it, so I'm trying to remember. Like, I remember there being like things that I like highlighted and circled and wanted to go back to, but just tell me what's like it being fresh on your mind, like what stands out to you still about it.
I think I love the beginning part because they talk about when we are born, we take in the world through our five senses. Like that's how we orient to the world. What we see, what we hear, what we smell, what we feel. Like if you think about like babies, like those all of those things. And that's kind of how our nervous system gets formed. And so when we're in an environment that is nurturing, that's kind, that feels safe, that feels loving, that's how our nervous system kind of shapes the world and the environment that we're in. And if, circumstances are different throughout our life and we have an environment that maybe is a little bit more loud or less needs are getting met consistently or something like that, that shapes our nervous system too. And so we hold on to that, not necessarily in a bad way, but in a survival way. Totally. And so then as we get older, sometimes those can have effects on us when we get older in the nervous system. So it just kind of talks about that and then how to release that, how to process that, how it affects your day-to-day life, how it affects relationships, kind of an attachment as well. So I think I love that part because it put it in perspective of like, oh my gosh, it's like we're wired from when we're little. Sometimes like trauma can go with us, not necessarily good or bad, but just like, what do we do with it? Like, how do we process it? How do we coexist with it?
Totally. And it's so non-shaming, like what happened to you.
Yes, that was another thing is they really talk about the title is like we kind of tend to ask people like what's wrong with you? And so they're really trying to shame that. It's like it's not necessarily what's wrong with you. It's like what happened to you that's now causing that behavior.
What happened to you that made this adaptive? This thing that like feels so hard for you or feels so hard for the people who are like interacting with you.
Yeah. That's so it's such a good, it's a sweet read. I'm gonna have to read it again. I listened to it on audio.
Was it narrated by Dr. Perry and Oprah?
I think so. Oh, that was a while back ago, but I think it
was. I bet that was great.
Yeah. So highly recommend. What happened to you? Yeah.
Let's head back to the couch.
And we're all growing and we should grow. Like the evolution, like my background, I worked in adoption. So I worked with a lot of infertility couples and lost couples who had experienced infant loss or miscarriage. And through that, I learned thematically that there was this huge component of their intimacy impacted. And so through that, like had the opportunity to do some really cool training at the University of Michigan with like sex therapy and learning what that looks like. And I can totally work within sex therapy. And I also like came from the roots of my own lived experience off the backs of my own clients that taught me so much. But like, when I started working with infertility, I never thought I would be like niching with sex therapy or niching with reproduction. And I've had phenomenal people like hold my hand as I learned that community and immersed myself in understanding and also kind of took my own experience and put that in a box so I could listen to the experiences of others, but also bring myself in the room in that way. So it's a journey. It takes time.
It does. And I think that's just a beautiful example of like, oh, I'm curious about this and not just putting it on your website. It was like, let me do some work first, maybe to explore and then get the supervision, get the education, get the knowledge, get the resources. So I think you've modeled that, at least to us specifically, and now hopefully to more people, that a curiosity can be there. And then the work is the journey like behind it to be able to expand that population too.
Okay, so you just gave us like a beautiful systemic lens here. So I want to kind of tie that in. So you talked about like, do you have the community to support you working with this client? And so I think one of the things that like I love, our team loves about you is that you have like been amazing as like a resource in the community to kind of understanding like who are the practices that we want to refer to, who are the practitioners that we want to work to. And so as you've niched your practice, I feel like you've also niched your resources, your referral list. And so can you kind of like walk us through that and what that looks like?
Yeah, I think, it's really important to know the other people in the community that are like-minded, not the same.
Correct.
But like-minded.
Okay. I'm a person, I'm looking for therapy.
Yeah.
What do I need to know about a therapist, like profile or how they market themselves with a niche? So if I see a therapist that says like, my profile, says something like, I'm Emily, I work with fertility challenges and motherhood and sexual health, right? Like, okay, like why is that important? Like, why does the client care about that? Do they need to look for that? Or is it okay to have someone that's broad? Like, what would you say to someone who's searching for a therapist?
I think probably this is because of the clientele that I work with, is you're not going to find the perfect therapist. And I think some people try to find like what the perfect one might be sometimes.
Yeah.
And so even challenging that is like, just start somewhere.
Okay.
Somewhere first. So if something stands out to you about someone's profile, be curious. Make that 15-minute consult. Reach out. Don't let, oh, well, I am struggling with intimacy, but not infertility. So maybe that's not the good fit. And it's like, that's okay.
Yeah.
But something stood out there. So don't put yourself in a box. It can be scary. So if there's something that felt like there was a connection there, lean into that and notice that. I definitely have clients where they don't identify as perfectionists.
Totally.
And then we get working and they're like, oh, there's a tendency there. There's something there. And so even not limiting to that, because I think for some people, they know what they want. They know what they're looking for in therapy. But for some people, they're like, I don't know what I need. I just need someone. And so that's where it might be helpful not to niche and just to kind of see where you connect with someone. It's so like simple, but I think there's a point of like, I know what I need. So this is what I'm looking for. And then I don't know what I need. So where do I go? And it's like, where do you feel like there's a connection point? Like I had, an instance for me personally, that was like humor. Like there was like a line about humor and a client was like, that caught me.
Yeah.
And so I was like, great. I'm glad that felt connected there. So
yeah. And I think set up the consult and like do a free consultation. A lot of therapists do it. Therapists, if you're not doing it, like I think it's a good tool.
Oh, for sure.
Because it's like, does our personality fit? Like, is this someone I would go to coffee with? Or is this someone that I'm like, I got the ick factor. It just wasn't a vibe.
Yeah.
Therapists are not one size fits all. Thank goodness. Like you are unique. Your therapist is going to be unique. So like vibe it out, I think a little bit there, but I love, like, I've never thought of that. Like also notice that your therapist is also a person. So like the idea of who you want for a therapist, like might not be exactly what it is, as long as you feel safe, comfortable, seen. Ask them questions. Like, do you specialize in this? Do you have a history in working with this? Like, what are your thoughts on athletes and mental health? Like maybe ask them those questions in the consult and see what that vibe is like.
For sure. And I think, maybe this is a little hot topic, but like do consult with multiple different therapists.
Yes.
Like it's for you, right? Like you want to feel comfortable and safe. And I don't think that necessarily means easy.
No.
Like maybe this therapist is a little bit more challenging and you're like, ooh, there's something there that like felt uncomfortable, but like I'm curious, right? Because hopefully they're going to kind of challenge perspective or reframe some things or encourage you in different ways. And so just noticing like those needs within yourself and then being able to connect as a human, shop around for lack of a better term. That way you can say like something stands out to me here, or that didn't feel good at all, or something like that. So I think it's okay to do that. As someone searching for a therapist.
And I mean, in my consults, one of the first things I'll say is like, how did you find us? And like, what are you looking for? And they'll say like, I loved your profile. It felt safe. I loved your website. It was, it was cute. It was a good vibe. Okay. But also like, I'm so glad those things happen for you, but like, what are you looking for? Because I might not be the right fit. I might not have the training. And like, I promise I can help you like find the avenue to that person if I'm not the person. And, if I am the person, cool, let's totally work together. But if not, I want you to still have access to care.
Yeah. And I think that's an important piece for therapists to reflect on too, is like, you might not be the right fit for everybody. And that's okay. I think probably early on in my career, I would feel really bad. I'm like, oh gosh, like I could work with them. And it's like, but I don't know if we are. And that's okay. There's always a therapist for every client. And you don't have to be that therapist for every client.
So in terms of like ethics in our field, it says like do no harm, right? Obviously. And so if you don't have the training or the background, like we talked about earlier, like it is really important to say honestly to that client and say, hey, like I'm not the fit for you because I believe that you deserve this type of care. And I want to make sure that you find that type of care. Okay. So like if someone hears this podcast today, like what do you hope that they take from our conversation about niching? Like what's our summary here?
Okay. So I think for maybe potential clients, looking for, if there is a specific need, there is probably a therapist to meet that need. So being able to be curious about that, have conversations, ask questions if there's a therapist kind of in that specialty, that niche. And then if you don't know kind of what you're looking for, but you're maybe like an empty nester. And so then also just be curious, like maybe someone that is also an empty nester could be great for you, but maybe someone who isn't. And so maybe interviewing kind of both. So I think as a potential client, be curious and open-minded. I think as a new grad, don't listen to the pressures of grad school. take a deep breath. There is a whole career and a whole time to evolve that, change that, fluctuate that. So be kind and compassionate to yourself as you're learning that. And I think get a good support system around you of other therapists that can kind of pour into that thought and that experience. And then I think as like maybe seasoned therapist is permission for that to change.
Yeah.
Like I think it's okay for different seasons of life, for different populations or different specialties to come up, because that probably original one's always going to be there to some extent, but it's okay for that to kind of look different in other seasons.
I love that because it says like you can evolve in what you need in therapy or like in your different journeys. I've had a few different therapists that like I've seen in different seasons of life. So like as a client, it's okay to talk to your therapist about maybe like I'm growing out of this relationship or I'm looking for something different. I think it's okay to say like this is the season of life I'm in and this is who I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And then as a therapist, like just be open to growing. Don't force yourself into this like
100%.
I must do this X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
So I think just staying fluid all around is crucial.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us today, Katie. And thank you guys for watching episode 2 of Sharing the Couch. We'll see you next time.
Just a reminder, this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. While we are licensed therapists, this is not a substitute for therapy, diagnosis, or individualized mental health care. Listening to this podcast does not create a therapeutic relationship. If you're needing support, we encourage you to connect with a licensed provider in your area. If you are in a crisis or believe you may harm yourself or others, please call 911 or contact the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline at 988 in the United States.